So, welcome to another episode of BetaTalk. I'd like to thank my season sponsors who are Intergas, and I'll put a link to their website in the show notes. So, joining me today are three people from the company called HomeTree. Now, some of you may be familiar with HomeTree, some of you may not. Some of you may be familiar with Emma Bowen, a very, very good friend of mine, managing director of IMS Heating, and her company was acquired by HomeTree. So that's perhaps how some of you have come to hear of this company. I had the wonderful opportunity of having dinner with all three of these gentlemen and Emma not so long ago. I think it was at an Octopus event. But so joining me today is Olly Cutting, Pranjal Arya, and Johann Kühns. Now, hopefully, guys, I pronounced them. Johann, did I pronounce yours right?
It was perfect. I couldn't have done it better.
Oh, there you go. So, guys, let's. I'm going to start with you, Olly, because Olly, he sort of comes from the part of the country that I've been living in for a couple of decades. We Suffolk, good old Suffolk, don't we, Olly? And
Good old Suffolk. Yeah.
I think you're an avid Ipswich supporter. My daughter and
Indeed.
daughter's mum were there the other day watching Ed Sheeran, another local resident. So just tell us a little bit about Home Tree, their beginnings, and what you, like I said in the intro, people perhaps have heard of you because you've acquired quite a well-known heat pump installation company and a good one. You know, like I said, Emma's a very, very good friend of mine. She's a fantastic lady. She's just recently won an award for her greatness, really. And you and I both saw that award being presented, didn't we, Ollie, at the installer show?
We did. Yeah. Well deserved, Emma. Well deserved. Yeah. Look, thank you very much for having us on. If I can just kind of give a really brief overview of Home Tree, we were started in our CEO's bedroom in 2015, always with the view of helping the residential environment decarbonize. We started life installing boilers, trying to do it better than anybody else. And we realized that you wanted more of a customer touch point than that kind of one install piece. So we switched to a home services model, a recurring revenue model for the kind of the business minded of us, where we look after the customer's journey from anything going wrong with their home energy system. So to begin with boilers, all the way through to kind of ongoing maintenance, and then hopefully being in a position to help them when they need to upgrade or they need to move towards kind of renewable systems. We have three core divisions at the moment. One is home cover, which is that AA for your home, that kind of monthly costs to give you peace of mind, make sure you are covered if something goes wrong with your energy system, or if you need to have that kind of annual service visit. We also have renewable installations, which is installing renewable hardware, kind of Ronseal, does exactly what it says in the tin. And then we've got renewable financing as well, which helps us remove the number one barrier to adoption of renewable hardware, which is usually cost. So those three divisions all work together we call it a customer journey flywheel, helping us to look after our customers on their whole home energy journey, from installation through to maintenance, through to emergency repairs, and also that financing piece. So that's kind of us in a nutshell. And we're always expanding all of those divisions and looking for new ways to help our customers, but also help our installer partners improve their services as well.
And when you say installer partners, Pran, is this, as we know, you acquired or you merged? We'll discuss what the difference is between them two. IMS. I mean, do you have direct labour, or when you say that the people that are putting in these systems, is this because you've acquired the companies? How does that work?
Yeah, I've been with HomeTree's 7 years and was here when we started out as a boiler installer. One thing we learned was when we were a boiler installer, we were a national boiler installer. We had a head office in London, and we tried to grow ourselves. One thing that we learned was, for many important reasons, the UK customer really trusts the local engineer. So in that boiler installer world, you had British Gas on one end, and they only ever did 10% market share. So they were the market leader, but actually that's a very small share. And the rest of it was made up by mostly local trusted heating companies because, the local customer really trusts their local engineer. Um, so when we found out the hard way, it's very hard to compete with the local engineer on one end who is able to generate leads or generate business through word of mouth and referrals, without needing to pay hundreds of thousands of pounds to advertising companies or Google to attract leads. So we found it hard. It's been hard to compete with them on one end, and British Gas on the other end, who, despite not being the most loved brand in the world, they've probably got 100% brand recognition in the UK. So yeah, when we decided to enter the renewable installation market, we felt that it was really important to do it in a different way, not try and grow ourselves with our own brand, but actually to partner, but actually acquire local installation businesses who have that kind of built up over 15, 20 years, like IMS, this kind of book of word of mouth referrals, um, uh, being a set of customers that you don't have to kind of pay advertising companies for. So we've bought four renewable installation companies across the UK. We acquire them completely. We try and create a model where we incentivize the founder or the MD to stay with us. We have had a few. We have had one where the founder retired a year after working with us. But generally, we want to buy companies with engaged MDs who want to get to that next stage of growth, but are struggling to find some of the things that would help them to get there. And will help them do that. We can go into more details on that. But yeah, we acquired them. We have direct labor. We buy companies with established brand names that have been around for 10, 15 years, and who install heat pumps and or solar PV and battery.
And Johann, I'm assuming the companies that you want to acquire that we're not talking sole traders here. We're talking SMEs of a certain size, I presume, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. As Pran was saying, because we want to have a certain scale, because I think that's when we can really bring value to these businesses, when they have an established labor force, when they have their own sales team in-house. That's when we think, okay, then we can actually bring more values with what we've learned from our other businesses than also to these kind of businesses. So yes, we will be looking at businesses that have a certain size. We look at businesses always have their own labor force, so they can also control their installation qualities themselves. And ideally, businesses that have been around for a long time, that then already have built up this local brand heritage that we can then build upon and help them bring their business to the next stage.
And for a business, I mean, I know zilch about business. I mean, even though I own a company, but what is the benefit? I suppose. Let's say someone's running this kind of size business. Is there a benefit for them to become acquired? I mean, like you mentioned, Pran, obviously the founder can stay employed. Ideally, you want all the engineers to stay and remain. But I mean, what is the benefit for them? Because I suppose naturally we think, oh, someone acquires me, it's now them making profit or part of the profit. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, we all watch things like Dragon's Den, don't we? We see how people invest in stuff, and it goes completely over my head. I mean, all I know when I watch that is whether it was good or not good. And I probably don't get that right. But I don't understand, and I'm sure lots of people don't understand what this whole acquisition thing actually means. I mean, can you give us a bit more info about that, Ollie?
Of course. Yeah. So look, it won't be right for everybody. And there will be, we come across companies where they say, thanks for approaching us. We feel really flattered that you're interested in our company. Gives us a little bit of credit for what we've built over the last few years. But actually, our plan is to hand it down to our sons or our daughters, and we don't need any help. We are doing really well. We feel that that's the best place for our business. We want to keep it in the family. That is absolutely fine. As an entity or as a company, HomeTree, we're extremely transparent, and we really respect that. We know that it's not going to be for everybody. Where we come in is we don't sit in our office in London, claiming to know how to do things better than anybody else, claiming to know how to install heat pumps and solar and EV charging and other technologies better than anybody else. I'm pretty sure I can speak for the other two gents here that we couldn't go out and install a heat pump right now. No chance. But what we want to do is we want to acquire companies or partner with companies that need a little bit of help or need a little bit of strategic direction in areas where they're not experts. So I always say, we want to help you with the stuff that you don't like doing or that you need help with, and leave you to do the stuff that you do really well, which is hopefully design and install fantastic bloody systems and keep your customers really happy. We can then help with the growing that funnel, increasing your own sort of brand strength, lead generation, sales process optimization. So making sure that when you're getting those leads, the right people are in the right places and all the processes are in place to help you convert all of those, hopefully, into sales and into cash. Help with recruitment in terms of increasing your workforce, be that direct labor or be that kind of back office stuff like extra finance people or extra sales surveyors. And also just overall kind of strategic direction. So we worked with, as Pran said, 4 companies, all of which need slightly different support in slightly different areas. So that might be, how can we help a company improve their, or not necessarily improve, but add to their product spec? So if it's installing heat pump at the moment, how can we help them kind of upskill their workforce, introduce new people, and introduce new products like solar, for example, that kind of complementary product. How can we help our installers in a certain region move out of that region into kind of neighboring counties? And how can we overall, how can we build the companies? How can we make them grow bigger than they already are? And as I said, the most important bit is, how can we keep the founders and the workforce that's already there super happy? We're not an organization that comes in and says, we know how to do this better than you. I'm going to get rid of you, and you, and then we're going to bring in all our own people because we know how to do it better. We don't. It's very, very important to us. 2 things. One, the founders and the people that are the kind of the lifeblood of the business want to stay with the business to help support it and help run that culture and help foster all the relationships that they kind of have built over the last 10-15 years. 2, keep all the really important people in play in terms of the staff. We don't want to come in and start messing with what's working already. And 3, probably the most important, is that rebranding piece. We don't want to rebrand. We want to keep that brand strength, that legacy, the track record that the founders in these companies have worked so hard to build over the past however many years, holds so much strength. So I waffle on a lot, so apologies. But look, in short, we want to take away the kind of the pain points or try and ease the pain points and leave the installers to do what they love doing best.
So in some ways you become kind of business mentors in some way, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe to add on what Olly has said, I think also one critical aspect of our model is, and I think also what Emma and others have told us, that it's also nice to have a sparring partner in these businesses, because most of these companies have built their companies for 10, 15 years, and it gets lonely at the top being one of the best installers, and you don't really have people that you can chat to, that you can bounce strategic decisions off each other. And what we're now doing, we want to be that kind of partner, but then also want to leverage our group in that we can also allow them to speak or bring them together, have an installer round tables, and allow them to speak to each other, have some friendly chats about, okay, how do you actually solve this kind of problem? What's your view on this? Okay, for us, that lead gen strategy really worked well. So it's also kind of being the partner to the business and helping them not be alone with their problems that they see on a day-to-day.
It's a very interesting point you've made there, Johan, especially for me. So I've mentioned this before on the podcast. So within education, within teaching, there used to be a gentleman. He was an Australian gentleman. I think he still does it, but every 2 years he would publish a list of things that had a high impact on learning within educational settings, usually around high schools. And the top number 1 for a number of years was something called collective teacher efficacy, which is basically where the teachers in an organisation come together and have a shared ownership of, like, they're going to be able to do things really well and help their students. and that kind of leads to that. This, it could be lonely at the top, but they've now got an environment where they can, like Emma, for instance, on the end of the phone. We all know Emma can talk for England, but most of what comes out of her mouth is absolutely fantastic. I love chatting to Emma, but she's got someone to chat to now, and talk about this stuff, and this is this collective sort of this thing. The one thing I want to, and we've chatted to each other about this before. So you've got a different model than, say, companies that want to be large installation companies. Let's say someone like Era, who are direct employing people. You don't want to do that. You want to keep the individual companies out there. They've built up their brands. They're trusted within their locality. That's your model. Now, how does that differ to? Because there are some models. I've got one in my head. I'm probably not going to mention them because I think a lot of the stuff they do is stealth. I think you guys know them. Emma knows them very well. But their original intention was to be B2B. They're now B2C for various reasons. Now, they will also have, let's say, a group of companies they will work with around the country who will do these installations. They're going to still keep their SMEs. They're not sole traders. They'll keep their branding. They've got their local communities. But they won't acquire them. I suppose that's what I'm looking at. They won't actually acquire them. Whereas that's sort of your model. You actually acquire the companies. And then I suppose the second question I want to ask is, how does sort of profit? Let's say I run a business and I know kind of the rough profit I'm going to make on a particular job. If I'm now acquired, I suppose I'm having to share some of that profit with another company. I mean, so these sort of 2 points, I suppose it'd be great to understand better.
Sure. Do you want me to pick those up? So we've got the point around acquisition versus kind of, I guess, partnering or just being, part of an agreement or whatever, like a franchise or something like that. So for us, we want to support the UK customer. We want to do it with the best local installers. We also want to make the HomeTree group as valuable as possible, right? So we want to ensure consistency, and we want to ensure that we've got the best possible service for our customers. Now, you can do that by having an agreement where you're subcontracting out work to people that aren't part of your group technically, but they're just under an arrangement. For us, we want to have the control, but also that sense of all those employees of the installer are now part of our group and part of our central family. So, we had our summer party a couple of weeks ago, summer get together, and we had representatives from all of our installers come. And it's that one family feel is, I think, incredibly, incredibly powerful. Yes, they've got their individual identities. They do. And that's how they operate. And that's how they go to market. But actually, for us as well, that, perhaps I'm going to jump in a second, having that kind of one team approach feels really, really strong for us and allows us to deliver a really, really good service to our customers.
Yeah, I was just going to add, so Ollie talked about this kind of flywheel. The whole ethos around HomeTree is when you install a heating system, that's not the end of the road for you. You need that heating system to survive, hopefully, for 15, 20 years, and you will need engineers to come out. So we have 3 different parts to our business: the install, the finance, and the servicing. We need all of those to work semi-independently. So we set ourselves up as 3 individual business units, but they need to be heavily interconnected. So we just think that acquiring companies gives you that right balance between, letting the founders still run their business as MDs and still kind of do what they're good at, to use Ollie's word. But by having employees that are part of one institution, we can work together in a much easier and better way, bring people together at important times, and just have that stability. We know that company is going to be with us now for hopefully forever, right? Versus in a franchise model, you can always change franchise after a certain period of time. So, yeah, I think for those reasons, it's really important to us. And I think it's been really great bringing some of the different installation businesses together at things like our summer parties or at our kind of twice a month installer days, where we bring all the different businesses together and we do a whole day event of, what are we seeing in the market? what are some of the learnings that we've got from each other? How do different people install different systems? What is the best systems to install? And yeah, they're really. I mean, Johann, you've been to a few of them. Olly, you have as well. They've been really great sessions. So, I mean, Olly, do you want to answer the question on the profit?
Of course. Yeah. So with any transaction, when you're getting investment or being acquired, there is a sense of losing control or giving away, selling part of your business, and we're really conscious of that. The founders that we're working with have worked incredibly hard to build up their brand reputations, build their companies, and create a huge amount of value. And whenever we do a transaction, we want to do a couple of things. We want to make sure there is some cash on day one for to some consideration for the value that has been created to date, but also encourage and align the founders and the key decision makers in the business to keep going and to help us keep growing that business going forwards. So we do that with something called an earnout or a profit share, which is what you've just stated, Nathan. We want to share the upside with the founders or key decision makers going forwards. Now, some people might say, well, I've got 100% of my business right now. Why would I want to share, let's say, half of it with HomeTree going forwards? The way that we see it is that hopefully you might have a slightly smaller slice, but of a much bigger pizza. That's the analogy, right? So we can hopefully, with our strategy, with our lead generation, with our group effect, with our procurement opportunities, the benefits of being part of a larger organization, help to grow the installer businesses, hopefully bigger and hopefully quicker than they maybe would have been able to on their own. So hopefully that slightly smaller part that the founders or the key decision makers are sharing is actually growing and hopefully continues to grow.
Yeah, so well, before I forget it, what you were mentioning, Pran, was this whole thing of collective efficacy, isn't it? You have these sort of regular meetings, people can come to the table, what works, what's not working. I really like that, as you know, one of the leading advocates for this peer-to-peer piece. I suppose, so what I'm thinking of is, so I've chatted, as you can imagine, a lot of SMEs have when Emma became acquired, I probably knew sooner before most that was happening. It sparks a lot of interest, as it would, because a lot of us can all communicate now on social media, and we all chat, don't we? And so I've chatted to some, because this business, and as we've spoke at dinner, I said one of your challenges would be is how would you know? You could look at the profit share. You could look at all the business aspect of a company and know that they're doing that right. But would you know they're an actual competent company, technically? And we've chatted about that. But I suppose so. I've chatted to some companies that I know that are good about this whole acquisition piece, because being of my age, I've my dad had a business. He had 600 service customers, and he literally gave his business away, literally, because we're not business minded. I'm not particularly business minded. That's what happened 10 years ago, whatever, or during COVID, actually. And so I've chatted to company owners about this kind of acquisition piece. It's very obvious that we don't know a lot about it, all us sort of types. And I suppose for them is you've got other models. So we've got umbrella models. So let's say like HP, the biggest umbrella in the country. They and theirs isn't always SMEs, sometimes sole traders. You've then got other companies that are part of that funnel process. So they're getting the work in, and then they will distribute it to the SMEs. So they're kind of doing what you guys do there. But obviously you've gone this one other step, and you've acquired the company. So whether that makes, I suppose, with the other model I've just mentioned, they could get rid of that SME if they didn't want them anymore. They could just get rid of them.
Yeah.
Whereas there's less fragility with your model, I suppose, isn't there?
Yeah, I think to Olly's point, look, our model works really well for some people. It won't be for everyone. But I think if I just take the archetypes of all the businesses and the founders that we've bought, if you have been in the industry for many years, but you've got that hunger to continue, but you're seeing the market slightly consolidate, you're seeing new technology changes like AI, and the marketing is really confusing for you, and it's hard to compete with some of these bigger brands that are coming into the market, but you really care about what you do and you want to retain ownership of your business, but also be rewarded for the hard work that you've been put out from um, in a cash way. I think HomeTree's are really good. I mean, I would say that, but that's the kind of people that we find of quite attracted to our type of model, because, as we said, we keep the founders engaged. To your point, Nathan, that means that we do not have an incentive to undersell or underpay for stuff, because the last thing I want um, is having a disgruntled employee working for HomeTree, right? That
Yeah.
we've bought their business. We want them to be staying engaged for 4 years, and they're disgruntled because they felt they didn't get a fair deal. So, we make sure we treat people well, because we know there's a long-term relationship um, there. But to your point, there's the stability. You go from the unvolatility of, you might have a great year post Ukraine and solar, and then the next year it's very difficult. You have a bit more
Yeah.
stability by becoming an employee. There's still an upside there if the business does very well. And then to Johann's point, you've got we've got a small central team of experts in their domain, whether that's marketing, whether that's finance, whether that's HR, and then you've got access to, at the moment, three other, but hopefully in the future, many more installation companies who are not competitors, because we buy companies across the country and we don't buy any companies in the same area. So you've got true peers that will tell you everything. They've got no reason to hide anything, because you're no longer a competitor. So yeah, for people that are interested in that, I think HomeTree's quite an interesting model. Johann, I think you wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like I feel our model has the benefit of like this all in this together piece. So it's just like there's no disadvantage for you to sharing your data with other companies in the group, with our central team. And what we basically do at these installer roundtables is just like we try to compile data from all these different companies that we have, layer them next to each other, and then see, okay, company A is doing this, company B is doing this, what's better, what could help company C improve their installation idle times, or whatever kind of metrics. And I think this is, because we're all one company now, this is protected and stays within the company. Whereas in the franchise model, as you said, it could be that companies then after 1 year doesn't work out, leaving the franchise business, and you share competitive intel with a different company. So I think that's one of the main advantages of our model, that we all win together.
We all win together. Sorry, Nathan. So just one more thing. We all win together, but I think the really important differentiation between an owned model, where our installers are owned and part of our group, versus if you are a franchisee, or if you're just part of a lead generation group, or part of an umbrella, is that if that umbrella or that lead generation dries up, you as an installer stop getting leads, or you stop getting work from them, and so then you're left to be in the trenches on your own. But as part of a larger group, as part of a family like HomeTree, yes, exactly as Johan said, we win together, but we're also in the trenches together if stuff goes wrong, and you've got that support around you. So that's, I think, a really important differentiation there between kind of ownership, where we're all part of the same family, we're all helping each other out in the good times and the bad times.
Well, I know Emma's super happy, and as we all know, if Emma wasn't happy, she'd let us.
We'd know. Yeah.
I mean, I'll talk about that funnel thing, because something very interesting's happened to me. So I don't really know how the algorithm for YouTube works, but I watch quite a lot of YouTube sort of around the topics I'm quite interested in. I was watching a Rory Sutherland podcast last night, but I've noticed that the advert I'm always getting on YouTube at the moment is your one. So if you go back 6 months, because obviously I don't know whether the phones are listening to us or not, but I talk an awful lot about heat pumps. And so if you go back 6 months, it was Callison's advert, or Plug Me In, and Aera's advert. There was a little spate where I think Valent did one. But I see your advert probably 30 times a day now. So that's quite interesting for me. So like this is part of the funnel. This is you securing work that then filters out to these companies you have acquired. Interestingly, though, that advert, I do want to pick up with this. Interestingly, because the way you started, and perhaps I'll talk to you a little bit more about, because it sounded like you were quite early. It was 2015, I think you mentioned, Ollie. You obviously went into this space of service provision. And obviously, anyone that knows the industry will know your biggest competitors are going to be people like British Gas and HomeServe. So you got like HomeTree, HomeServe, British Gas. I've noticed your YouTube advert is juxtaposing your offer against British Gas's. It looks like you're trying to acquire their service customers. We'll talk about this funnel now, but I mean, I want to come back to this service model because, as someone that knows the history of the heating industry quite well in the UK, the service model is very interesting. Actually, I'll mention it now because it's all called sort of like a service model. It's actually not service. So most of the entities that are involved in this are doing safety checks on boilers. So, my family, the other sort of really good engineers I know, when they go and service a boiler, service is completely different to the safety check you're required to do by law. So the gas regulations require you to do some particular safety checks. And of course, the companies that run these service, let's talk British Gas, for instance. They want people to be in and out that home as quick as possible. So I've known someone, a lady actually, she great gas engineer. She used to work for a particular service company. She had to, she was kind of coerced to do 15 a day. You're in and out of someone's home, 15 home, and they don't pay you. You're getting paid per home, so you're not doing a proper service. Sometimes involves you taking the case off the boiler, cleaning some components out, doing a lot of checks, not just the safety checks. I'll use this example. When I first met my daughter's mum, lovely lady, she was on a service plan for British Gas, paying her over £400, which provided her with a few extra things. Apparently, if the sanitation stuff went wrong, but she was supposed to get a service every year. Well, that had gone 2 years without a service. Now, obviously, if the boiler broke down, they're probably going to come in and repair it. And if you can't repair it, they'll put a new boiler in, which isn't actually great for the environment if we're replacing boilers when they don't really need to be replaced. But 400, and I said to her, look, I can buy a brand new boiler every 2 years for that. And this whole insurance model, the whole world of insurance is quite complex to me, but it's based around human fear. Oh, this might happen, therefore we'll pay this amount of money every month. And it's very interesting, these service models, because a lot of the engineers I know that actually use that to find work or do work, they're running in and out of these homes. They're not servicing boilers, they're doing the safety checks required under the law. But obviously you've made this leap, if you started in 2015, you've made the leap now to acquiring companies specifically around renewable technologies. I mean, British Gas, obviously, as we know, are getting involved in renewable technology. I mean, I didn't know, was there a particular reason why you wanted to get into renewables, or you just saw that as the future?
Yeah, I mean, HomeTree has always believed that it was the future. And when we started in 2015, our CEO kind of predicted there was going to be this once in a generation energy transition, and it needed a new type of utility, one that was more customer centric, cared more about customer outcomes than necessarily just about the commercials. And I don't want to, necessarily denigrate any competitors. I think they do a good job in many ways, but we felt that we could provide something different to British Gas. And I think, to your point, we saw all of the feedback on Trustpilot or on review sites that you've mentioned. I'm paying 500 quid a month, a year. What am I getting for that? The service doesn't last very long. When they come, they still take a week to come out. So we tried to build a home services provider that did things a bit better. So we don't hike prices in the same way that British Gas do. I believe we're very customer focused. So just this week, we reviewed our customer service stats, and we had an NPS of 97 on our service visits. So that means 97 out of 100 people said that they were 9 out of 10 happy with their service that they just had within this last week, right? Which is a very high customer service statistic. So,
what's that stand for, that acronym, Brent?
NPS, yeah, sorry, exactly. It means Net Promoter Score. It's just a way to measure customer satisfaction. It's a way that
Yeah. Yeah.
we do that. So, look, I think servicing is an interesting one because I think from the engineer side, I think you're right, Nathan, that sometimes a boiler doesn't really need one. But from a customer aspect, I think we hear from customers all the time that the peace of mind that provides, that in the summer someone has come and checked my system, so that if anything major goes wrong, to prevent anything major going wrong. Now you can't always prevent anything major going wrong over winter, but it does provide an important peace of mind. Having somebody come into your home and check that it's all safe and working. Now we definitely to balance the commercials as well, but we definitely don't ask for 15 services a day. I think we average 4 to 5, and we try and group them around the areas that are very close to minimise the travel time. But look, fundamentally, I think in this day and age, with comparison sites, with social media, etc., it is not possible to keep a customer for many years if you rip them off. So those customers who are paying 400, 500 pounds, who are getting bad service experience, will leave, and they do, and they come to us. And not every time we get it right, they leave us as well. But it's our business model it's very important that we keep customers for 5, 10, 15 years, so that when they need a new system, we can maybe educate them about whether a heat pump's the right system to get. And then we can keep that relationship for another 10, 15 years, especially if we help them finance it. So, we really try and focus on getting the best customer experience because that's our business model.
I think that's the really interesting piece you guys are involved in, this whole transition. You're in a very good position to transition people gently to the renewable technology. Going back to this customer, so the customer things, because my degree was in psychology, the customer piece is very interesting. So at the moment, as we all know, we've got these trusted sites. Rating seems to be something the human psyche is very, or regards as very important now. The interesting piece is, though, like you mentioned, Pran, this metric for customer satisfaction. No customer on this planet knows whether I've done a good job or not. They will know if I've been polite, tidy, and punctual. I can go around someone's home and be very, very friendly. They won't know if I've done an installation to regulations. If they did, they'd be competent as me and they would understand it. And one of the issues we have in this country, I mean, as you probably heard me ramble on about, we had the biggest gas boiler industry in the world up to 2016. There's one reason for that is because our boilers broke down quicker. And I was actually chatting to the editor of the BBC about this a few years ago. And he said, Nathan, you're right. I've had 3 boilers in the last 15 years. We've got a customer base out there that's quite used to having a new boiler, let's say every 8 years. That's not how boilers should be. We're controlling all the big companies, every big company. So I'm not just singling anyone out. Every large installation company installs boilers with the wrong control. They're installing the boiler so they go on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. And the irony is, and I've sort of called British Gas out about this recently and Boxed. The irony is they've both got into renewables where we teach people to do weather compensation, but weather compensation has existed for decades for boilers as well. That's how boilers should be controlled. At the moment, we control them on, off, on, off, on, off. So the poor old customer, they might have had a real friendly person come round. They've done that service. They haven't had to have a new boiler for 8 years, but their boiler was supposed to last a lot longer than this. Now, the customer doesn't know this. The customer doesn't know if I've installed a heating system to the water regulations. They don't know if I've installed it to the building regulations. They'll know if it works. They'll know if they're comfortable. They'll know if they're not paying too high a price. They'll be satisfied. But when it comes to the technical competence, they won't have a Scooby-Doo. And yet, across all industries, interestingly, what is it? Trust... I can't think of the blooming one now, the green one with the stars. Our psyche is placing so much importance on customer satisfaction ratings, when interestingly, they don't really know our industry at all to be able to rate it, especially the technical competence. They won't know how long that boiler or heat pump is going to last because they haven't got that technical competence to know that. So I've always been interested in this whole customer model. Obviously, primary thing number one is to keep your customers happy. You want customers, you want them to continue to be with you. So anything you can do to keep your customers is always going to be a good thing. But that's something that's always interested me.
It's a really good point. And look, customer satisfaction has to only be one data point into whether you think you're doing a good job, right? Again, our business model is people pay us to look after their boilers. And every time someone needs a fix or a repair, that costs us money, not the customer. So it's very important to us that when our engineers are going and servicing or repairing the boiler, we don't get a call a month later for it to have broken down again, because that costs us money. It doesn't cost the customer money. So customer satisfaction is important, but also we have a lot of data on reattend rates, first time fixes. We look at engineers and then how often does it break down again after the next few years, and we use that as training and education. So look, I think ultimately when you're incentivized to try and keep customers as long as possible, and you're incentivized to limit repairs, you need to make sure that you're keeping the customer happy and that we're doing a good technical job as well. So we try and do our best. We can't say we get it right every time, of course. But I think that's an important part of our business model, and I think in this day and age where you can switch very easily now between different providers and there are many alternatives out there, I think it's quite important. It's much harder to keep customers happy.
Mm. I think it's important to say it's peace of mind for a customer. Let's say they didn't have a service plan in place. They've got what's I was going to say yellow pages. It'll be Google. They got to try and find someone that's capable of coming around. Let's say repairing the board. It's broken down. They got it's a lot of pain for them to do that. So if they've got a network of support where it's just seamlessly done, that does help them, doesn't it?
Yes, I think there's the hassle reduction. So you have one number to call or one website to go to, and an engineer will be there hopefully within 24 hours. That's super important. It's also important that in the middle of winter there are more breakdowns than there are engineers, right? And therefore, and I've spoken to engineers who are doing 10, 15 jobs a day in the middle of COVID. They've hurt their back because they're working so hard because they're trying to please every customer. So obviously it makes sense for them to charge more, right? So that they can make their living as well. So very often in the middle of winter, if you need a call out, you will pay a lot of money for it, right? So that peace of mind knowing that you're not going to get ripped off or charged a lot of money for a winter repair is important for customers as well. Um, and then I guess the final thing is, yeah, just knowing that you're in the summer when you need a service visit, that's also included as well. So yeah, having all those three things gives good peace of mind for the customer.
Is HomeTree still involved in installation, or is it just servicing of boilers?
No, so we don't today install boilers ourselves. Because we're committed to be a renewable business, and we have our kind of carbon targets. We don't install boilers. However, obviously, if a customer needs a new heating system and we've decided for whatever reason that a heat pump isn't the right thing for them at this time, we'll pass that on to another company that will do it for them.
I think there's a really interesting link as well between the kind of the home services or home cover boiler side of things and that kind of service plan, maintenance plan into the renewable piece as well. So from a customer perspective, but also from an installer partner perspective. So the customer has been buying to date renewable hardware sort of as I don't like using the term, but as a bit of a kind of a fit and forget, right? So this stuff is built really well. It's solar panels, heat pumps, engineered really well. Not many moving parts in a solar panel. It shouldn't really go wrong as long as it's installed correctly. However, what we're finding is that our customers and the customers of our installers really value, as Pran said, that peace of mind. It's not a well, this is definitely going to go wrong, but it's if it does, we're covered, and we know that we've got a supportive partner and a business or a group that isn't going to go out, isn't going to stop trading anytime soon. So I don't know how I'm going to get my heat pump serviced or how I'm going to get my solar panels serviced. And they know that they've got that kind of longevity and that support there. So I think that's a kind of a really interesting way that we're using our learnings from home cover and bringing it into the renewable piece as well. And then from an installer perspective, we're finding that quite a lot of installers may offer service plans or offer a bit of a kind of an annual visit or will cover certain bits, but that ends up becoming a bit of a cost center for the installer. So it's shit, I've got to send out an engineer to go and do all these plans. Actually, I'd much rather they were doing an install of a heating system or a solar system that's much more profitable. So we can help with the benefit of being part of a group and with the benefit of access, and sharing potentially engineers between our installer companies and things like that. When there's periods of kind of ebbs and flows across regions, we can help those cost centers potentially move into kind of profit centers. So you can add additional revenue streams to the installers.
And the other thing, when you've got a large cohort of customers with boilers, and they were on your service plan, like I mentioned just a while ago, there's going to be ways in tech, because this is a behavioural piece. This isn't a technical piece. Heat pumps have existed for a long time, as you've all heard me say. It's a behavioural piece. How do we get people inspired to want one? There's a they cost a lot, even if you get the grant. And one of the reasons, there are going to be people out there that can afford it, but one of the things is, they're conscientious of the fact, well, we're hearing some of the times they don't work that well. We now realising it's down to a good engineer. There's some information that they need that's going to be on their level, and all consumers out there have different levels of understanding as well. So that's a piece. But if you've got this large cohort of customers, you can kind of start drip feeding them in a very nice way this kind of knowledge. I mean, I might be able to help you out. As you know, I've just started the Guild of Master Heating Engineers. I'm going to be having this newsletter, which is going to help customers understand what good looks like, and it's all based around. It's a very simple thing. It sounds very sort of grand and gravitas with Guild of Master Heat Engineers, but it's based around how the original guilds started back in the Middle Ages. Peer assessment. So the good engineers, the good engineering companies like them, they tend to know who the other good engineers are, especially now we live in this world of this strange computer mediated communication system called social media. What I've picked up on in the last 5 years, when I came on the scene, I said to a lot of people, look, what you're doing is peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer isn't new. Stone Age people sitting around a campfire discussing the best way to bring down a woolly mammoth is peer-to-peer learning. It's always existed organically. I just came on the scene and said, look, I've studied education. That's what's called peer-to-peer. There's a lot of research. What I kind of kept close to my chest for a little while was, though, this whole thing of peer assessment, because that's how the original guilds started in the Middle Ages. So you would have the master who would have an apprentice. After the 7 years, the apprentice was then called a journeyman, and they would literally journey around Europe doing whatever they whether it's weaving, candle making, stone masonry. And to become a master, they could only become a master if they were, and that's where this word masterpiece comes from. They would produce a masterpiece that was peer assessed by other masters. And if they assessed it as being competent, they were then that master. And this is going on organically. So that, I get asked by all sorts of high up people who's a good engineer for their own home. But, I've got a few sort of heuristics I use for understanding who is good. But other good engineers just naturally know who other good engineers are. We kind of do that. And that's exactly how my sort of guild has been formed. And obviously that site will be, because one of the big pain points for consumers is they just don't know who good is. Because qualifications, you might know, again, I'm a big advocate, and I've just had a quite senior high up meeting with someone in that education world. And I said, look, we teach people to qualified. We're teaching people to be qualified. We're not teaching them to be competent. They're two distinct things. Anyone can get a qualification. It does not mean you're good at your job. And of course, once you're qualified, you can then get accredited. So that's another industry. Accreditation does not mean you're good. Doesn't mean there are good people that are qualified and accredited, of course. But for the customer, they ain't got a clue. So that's one of the reasons why I did it. But coming back to this point of you can gently drip feed these people with the right information at the right time. Everyone needs information at different times and it to be at a different level. And you've got that advantage, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think hopefully that's also one of the value proposition we can bring to the customer who have been trusting us with their heating for the last 3-4 years. We have an engineer in their home every year. You can maybe already tell them whether their home will be suited for solar heat pumps. And then at that point where they make the decision that they want to go make the switch to renewable heating, we then have the right engineer at hand where okay, you don't have to look through all the Google web pages and then have to go on the wrong company's website and maybe have a bad installation experience. we have vetted our engineers that work with us, that partner with us, and can, if the consumer chooses to do so, also help them with financing their renewable asset. So it's not just a value proposition to our installers that we have this customer base that at some point will probably make the switch to renewable heating, but also we see that that's a huge benefit to our existing home cover customers, that they know they're in good hands with HomeTree and can have not just their current gas boiler heating looked after, but then also have a good renewable energy installation experience, plus then also the servicing of these assets afterwards.
Just for the listener, where are you? You mentioned Olly earlier. You're sort of in 4 regions at the moment. Obviously, people will, most of my listeners will know Emma's. The IMS is sort of based Sheffield and Scotland. Where are the other areas? If let's say a listener thinks, oh, I want a heat pump, I want HomeTree to do it. Yeah, what are the areas where you're currently covering?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, Emma runs IMS in Sheffield and also in Perth in Scotland. We have a company called GeoWarmth in Newcastle as well. So they cover quite a lot of the northeast. We have a fantastic company down in the southeast called Little Green Energy. So they do predominantly solar and batteries, a little bit of EV charging as well. And then we've got a multi-product installer down in Cornwall called GreenGen. They do heat pumps and solar and battery as well. So you've kind of got a good amount of coverage there in terms of kind of southwest, southeast, northeast, and then kind of central, sort of South Yorkshire with the kind of Sheffield, and then the kind of the reaching into Scotland. And coming back to a really important point that Pran made earlier, and that's that I like to call it sort of national coverage but delivered locally. So it's what we're trying to do as HomeTree is to make sure that the customer can get kind of access to incredible installations, fantastic cover, and market leading finance wherever they are in the country through a trusted name like HomeTree, but it's all delivered, or their renewable installation is delivered by a local hero, a regional champion. That's our model.
And are there certain areas in the country you're sort of particularly, I mean, have you got data coming in where you're sort of getting lots of inquiries from? There's certain areas where you're now looking at?
We do. So we look at where we're getting inquiries from, but we also map things like renewable hardware installation volumes, number of properties off gas, where installations, the size of installations, or the frequency of installations, to understand pockets of the UK that are perhaps going to adopt renewable hardware more quickly than others. So for example, GreenGen down in Cornwall, there's a lot of off-grid properties down there that are perhaps more suited to earlier adoption of renewable hardware. So that was a key area for us. Areas like East Anglia, we're looking at. You and I know that region well, Nathan. The Northwest, it's also really interesting for us, and parts of the Midlands as well, and across Lincolnshire. So yeah, we're looking all over the UK. Speaking to a number of different companies at the moment about potentially partnering. But look, we are always looking for more conversations, and we will never not have a conversation with an installer. I'll always want to find out what they're doing, why they're doing it. Could something be transactionable? Could we do something now or potentially in the future? So our doors are always open from that perspective.
You mentioned something there interesting, Olly. You mentioned data. So I always seem to have these certain sort of companies in my head when I think of this. So there's a particular company I'm thinking of, fantastic technical ability. Also quite interestingly, great business acumen. They know how to run a business very, very well. But what they don't do is know how to collect data and analyze it. So I suppose that's something else you guys bring to the table, isn't it, Johann?
Yeah,
I'll definitely let these guys pick this up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's something we've learned early on in our journey, that what these companies don't have is the capacity to collect this data, to have like specific persons collecting data in the sales funnel, and then analyzing where they might have gaps in the data, and then take decisions from them. So what we do very early onwards is making sure that we establish this data first in the sales process, but then also in the installation process, and then drive our decisions and how we can help the companies going forward out of this.
Grant, I'm going to come to you because I think when we had our lovely, lovely meal together, all of us, I think I'm right in thinking you've been in the company the longest. Have you got any stories to tell? Is there something, because obviously, the heat, a lot of the people I speak to that were not involved in the heating industry, but are now involved in it, have found it quite an interesting industry for all sorts of reasons. I mean, obviously, you've been involved in it for a few years now. Is there anything that sort of jumps out that sort of, because we all live with heating, or most people do in this country, we all live with heating systems and we just sort of don't really think about it unless you're in the heating industry. But as we've got this massive now push to decarbonise, so many entities are now involved in the heating industry. And some of the conversations I have with people are like, I didn't know all it. I didn't know this and didn't realise this. Is there anything that's jumped out to you in sort of the years you've been around the industry?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I definitely didn't think I'd spend almost 8, 9 years in the heating industry when I left uni. But like you said, it's so in our country, it's so important. Most people wouldn't be able to function without heating. And obviously, for some people not in it, they might think it's super boring. But I think for me, the biggest thing is how intellectually interesting it actually is. Um, so when you think of, obviously, there's a loads of different technologies. We've got new ones coming in and how they actually work. To how do you logistically get human beings into other human beings' home on time and doing things really well, to supply chain, to logistics. Like, it's really, really complex actually. And for people who are maybe listening to this, just, coming out of uni or coming out of school and thinking about apprenticeship, like, if you do want to be intellectually challenged, like, the heating industry is one to definitely think about. I think it's fascinating. I think the thing for us is, obviously we can see it a little bit, but there are so many businesses in the space. Like I said earlier, it's super fragmented, and they all kind of do things very differently. Like the 4 businesses that we've bought, they're all selling pretty much the same from the outside, selling pretty much the same technologies to the same types of customers, but they all have fundamentally different processes because they've, maybe to your point, Nathan, they've built it themselves. They've kind of learnt it from scratch and they've built it from first principles. And what's super fascinating is there are many different ways to do certain things. And we can see that because obviously having many companies, we know the details of those things. So yeah, I just think it's a super fascinating industry. It's a bit closed, like the same, we're coming across the same people that we started coming across in the boiler days 7, 8 years ago. But yeah, no, I think it's a super fascinating industry and I'm excited to see where it goes, and it's changing a lot.
What did you study at uni, Pran, before I forget? Mate, I like asking people that question.
Yeah, economics.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
not
Yeah.
not particularly related,
Very important.
but yeah, I guess important, and it helps us. It's helped me think about how to solve problems in like an analytical way,
What did
which is
you
super
study?
helpful.
What did you study, Ollie?
I studied finance
Yeah.
and accountancy at university, which is, why we stress when we're acquiring our installers that we don't know how to install heat pumps as ourselves. We can help with all the strategy and everything around, around the outside, but we need fantastic installers on board to do that, to do the
So
really important bit.
I'm coming to you too if I need finance advice. And Johann, what did you?
I studied climate change management and finance at Imperial just 2 years ago, which is mainly about the science behind climate change. Why is the Earth warming? What policies do we need to put in place to drive the adoption of renewable hardware? And then also, how can we finance this transition? That's all of this led me to HomeTree.
Wow, and you did
Very
that.
fitting.
You did that at Imperial, did you?
Exactly, at Imperial College. It was great. What a great cohort. With a lot of the people I'm still in contact, and they're also in the industry in different positions. But it was very, very fun.
And just for my listeners, because I'm nosy, I'm sure some of them are. I love accents. I've been lucky enough to travel. Just tell the listeners where your accent's from.
Hamburg, Germany.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's also interesting. There's a lot of similarities in the heating industry in Germany today. There's like similar business models that are happening there. So we could draw a lot of conclusions because the German heat pump market is a bit more advanced than in the UK. So we can see a lot of movement that happened there a year ago now happening in the UK. Yeah.
And of course, obviously, some of the well-known boiler manufacturers. I mean, great engineering heritage, of course, and so that's an advantage, isn't it? While I think about it, the other advantage you have got is you've mentioned the 4 companies you've acquired, are doing sort of range. There's solar, there's batteries, there's heat pumps, and I think that's another advantage because let's say a customer's had their heat pump installed by a heat pump company. They just do heat pumps. But let's say they've gone out and they've got their EV, they want to charge, and they want some solar. Sometimes there are going to be customers that it becomes a bit heterogeneous. So if they want all this stuff to work seamlessly together, like with your time of use tariffs, it can get a bit complex. They might ring up their heat pump install and say, "Oh, look, I've got my solar panels now. Is there anything I can do?" And that becomes a bit of an issue. Whereas you guys do it all, and if you haven't got the expertise right straight away, you have within the whole sort of team the broader family, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, maybe we shouldn't announce it on this, but IMS will start selling solar from next week. So
Well, they've been advertising on LinkedIn, so we're okay.
Okay, so there's already gone out, so I've not spilled the secret, but yeah, no, look, it's been amazing. So that was one of the things that Emma and team have wanted to do for many years, and put the bandwidth, and starting something from scratch like that is quite hard. But we had 3 other businesses in the group that had already done it, so we just used those other businesses to help build the process, set up all the systems, and give all the best practices, and we're off and away. So from deciding to start doing solar to getting our first, I think, install, which will be this month sometime or next month sometime, it's been 2 and a bit months. And that's the kind of pace at which, hopefully, by being part of the group, you can kind of get wanting a new idea and just running with it and using the amazing knowledge from around the group. I mean, none of us knew anything about installing solar, but we just helped facilitate it.
And I suppose for listeners, if I've got any business owners listening to this, I think, oh, this sounds quite suitable for me. I mean, who do they contact? Would they contact you individually, or just let the listeners know who they would contact?
Contact me.
Yeah.
There is a page on our website, hometree.co.uk. But equally, more than happy to give out my my email address, Olly, Olly.Cutting@hometree.co.uk. Always happy to hear from people that want to talk about potential options. And as I said earlier, look, this is never a hard sell from us. It's never it must be now or never. It's let's have a chat. Do you fit the profile? Do we fit your profile? And let's see if we can do something together.
Well, and I can put all those links in my show.
Yeah, please.
So if anyone wants to sort of have a further conversation with you about what all this means, I'll put them contact details in the show notes. Guys, it's been fantastic chatting to you, and thanks for coming on BetaTalk.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
It's been awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.